Hello everyone, I'm Professor Ozan Örmece, the coordinator of the International Political Academy, shortly known as UPA-UPA. As you know, I continue to make interviews with special guests from different countries. And today we have a guest from Ankara, Turkey's capital, having a remarkable academic career. Dr. Şebnem Udum holds several academic degrees from various prestigious universities, including the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, METU, Bilkent University again in Ankara, and also Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, United States. She is an important international expert on nuclear proliferation issues. She was a research associate at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies in the early 2000s. She is also a former chair and member of the International Nuclear Security Education Network, shortly known as INSEN, at the International Atomic Energy Agency. Dr. Udum has been working as associate professor in the Department of International Relations at Hacettepe University for several years. We are hoping that she will soon become a full professor. And in addition to her expertise on nuclear proliferation issues, she is also working on several aspects of Turkish foreign policy, particularly Turkish-American relations. She wrote an excellent piece recently to our edited book on Turkish-American relations by using some political psychology themes and theories. So I strongly recommend all of you to read this piece. So Professor Udum, what a remarkable career. Thank you so much for having your time with us today. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Professor Örmeci. I really appreciate your introduction of me, although we both know each other as befriended colleagues now. But yes, for more than 20 years now, it's approaching to 25 years that I'm working on this issue and having been educated at the very core school for this issue, I'm also happy to inform the audiences, several audiences, with the appropriate and accurate information. So I'm very pleased to be invited by you for this interview.
It's our privilege, Professor, and you don't appear so often in TV shows, so that's why it's our privilege. Thank you so much. And I think the interview is also very timely, Professor, because now everyone in the whole world is talking about the recent crisis between Israel and Islamic Republic of Iran. All important countries, their statesmen leaders are making statements, including Turkey, United States, Russia, China, European countries. And at this critical point, of course, everyone asks experts what are the limitations for states in current international system, the UN system, to have nuclear weapons. We know that many countries, including US, Russia, China, France, Britain, Pakistan, India, North Korea, have nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, and some countries are trying to reach nuclear weapons. And Iran has this program. I know it's started already in Shah era, so it didn't start with the Islamic period. But according to Israeli sources, this is a very critical matter threatening the very existence of the state of Israel. And the international community has to do something about it. But the Iranian side also responded. There was a deal, United States canceled it. So I'm asking you the whole package, hocam. What are the limitations to have nuclear weapons, and how Iran is close to having nuclear weapons, if this is correct?
We should actually perhaps divide it between before the nuclear non-proliferation treaty period and after, because there are several types of motivations that a state may be motivated to have nuclear weapons in the realist realm. It is currently a strategic weapon because in a war situation, You fire it once and you achieve your result, which is victory in war. And that, especially, for instance, we saw the case during World War II, that it brought the conditions for the unconditional surrender, and that was key, unconditional surrender of Japan, and then the end of the war, for the victory for the certain states that structured the world after the end of the world. And this actually mattered because a nuclear weapon for 4 years afterwards gave this superiority for the United States over the Soviet Union until it acquired one for itself. And in 1952, the United Kingdom had a nuclear weapon. And in the critical, actually, turning point for the peaceful uses of nuclear energy was 1953, when the then president of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, delivered a speech in front of the United Nations, which was then called the Atoms for Peace speech. And that was also now the name for the IAEA, because he said that we need to open up, I mean, I'm just interpreting, we need to open up the secrets of the atom to the world so that it will be used for peaceful purposes. Why? Because it was used for military purposes. Then this would be conditional upon its surveillance by an International Atomic Energy Agency. So this was the first principle, actually, that was introduced way before the signing of the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. And it led to the establishment of the International Atomic Energy Agency in 1957. So the purpose is, like in international law, or in law in general, when you give a right, there's always an obligation to balance it. And the right was peaceful use. So the nuclear technology will be shared, but because it is dual use, how you're using it will be under the surveillance, which is actually, he called it safeguards. The atom would be safeguarded so that with technical inspections, a state is going to be always under control for what it is doing, that it is only kept within the civilian realm. And what is called as the unwanted acts are called diversion or misuse. So the purpose of the safeguards is to prevent the diversion and misuse of nuclear material and nuclear technology. And with the developments until especially the Cuban Missile Crisis, in 1960, France had its own nuclear weapon. And after the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was the peak to understand that there should be a treaty, in 1964, China had a nuclear weapon. So we have the P5 acquiring a nuclear weapon before an international legal instrument existed. And according to the NPT, we have a two-tier system where legally what are called nuclear weapon states are exactly the P5 of the UN Security Council. And why? It says those who detonated a nuclear device before January 1st, 1967. Then the other exceeding states, state parties, are called non-nuclear weapon states. So in this category, if, technically and legally, if a state is not a party to the NPT, they are not bound by these rules. In 1974, India tested a nuclear device. And Israel also developed, starting with 1960. And then in 1998, we had two So these three countries at that time, well, in 2000 until 2003, North Korea was a party to the NPT, but then it withdrew from the NPT. Actually, when we carry out, which I did in my PhD dissertation, a simple discourse analysis of how these non-NPT nuclear weapon possessors are deemed in the international system, we have another cluster of states. Those states who are not threatening the international system, and those states who are threatening the international system, if you will. And in this classification, Israel and India are rather going with the system, and their nuclear weapons are legitimized. Like for Israel, it is for defense, it is for deterrence, it is not threatening international system. And India also, it fits with its great power status, which used to be once in history. And it's a projection of its power, they say. But especially when it comes to the domestic political systems, which are not democratic, not friendly with Western values, these are also seen as a threat because it is a combination. Like there might be an intention to use these weapons against the prevailing system. So that's why we cannot just pass by saying that, like, those who have nuclear weapons and those who don't have nuclear weapons. And so in this sense, we can say that some states were kind of allowed to develop these weapons without any punishment. And some states, even before they had a nuclear weapon, or they kind of gave an impression that they want to have a nuclear weapon, they were stopped at some point. And one of them was, for instance, Libya. And Libya, under Gaddafi, gave actually a wrong message, a bad message to North Korea. That North Korea understood that as long if it doesn't have a nuclear weapon, its regime, its existence would be threatened. And especially after 9/11, when those three, Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, were declared the axis of evil.
Yeah.
So developing a nuclear weapon might be contemplated, but it takes a decision-making process, nuclear decision-making, as we call it, to determine the consequences of such a decision. And what is key with the NPT, and what was very successful with the NPT, was the development of the nuclear non-proliferation norm. Norm means a standard of behavior, which means that when non-nuclear weapon states are staying as non-nuclear, this doesn't count as a security deficit, which means this won't count as a negative for them. But it counts as a positive. It counts as a security asset when they stay and they are observing international law and they are obeying with their commitments. It's because they have further benefits by being non-nuclear, such as, for instance, our country. It is not in our interest to have it. So what is key is not to make a country to want or to be motivated to have a nuclear weapon. That's the key. So it is, perhaps we can say it is not really a right, but it's an assessment and it is an important responsibility on the leadership of nuclear non-proliferation to give enough reason for states not to want to have nuclear weapons.
Okay, hocam. I got it very well. And as all issues, it's not apolitical. I mean, it's all about politics. So when it's about Israel, Of course, the US support Israel being a democracy, what happened to Jews during the Second World War, etc. These are important facts. And when it comes to Ukraine, also maybe the international public now criticize the Budapest Memorandum because Ukraine gave up from its nuclear weapons, gave
Right.
back to Russia, but it was in return for its territorial guarantee. But now, of course, this wasn't kept. So uh, this is a good basis. Thank you so much, Professor Udum. And following this first introductory remarks, Professor Udum, I would like to ask you about your friend, the director of International Atomic Energy Agency, Mr. Rafael Grossi. He is now a famous celebrity guy now because of the what happens in Ukraine, Russia, because President Putin sometimes reminds that Russia has the largest tactical nuclear weapon arsenal in the whole world, and now Israel, Iran tensions, etc. So there were some news in the international press about after Israeli attacks, there was a radioactivity leak in Iran. There was a statement made by the President Grossi, and later, of course, President Grossi made statements about Iran reaching towards the end of its uranium enrichment program. So could you please, for those who are not familiar with the topic, what is uranium enrichment? How's the situation in about Iranian nuclear program? Then we can maybe discuss the international politics, the deal P5 plus one, the what we call the JCPOA during President Obama time, etc.
Yeah, that's an extensive question, and I hope we will have enough time for that. First of all, we say DG Grossi, referring to Director General of the IAEA, and he's actually a very amicable person. So he's actually not like a friend of me like you are, but we met several times during my time at the IAEA, and also he is a very skillful diplomat by himself with his several skills of presentation, public speech, and knowledge of the area. So at one time, I had also communicated to him. I told him that I was writing an article about his very contribution to the problem with the Ukrainian nuclear power plants. And perhaps he was aware of it, but he was happy to hear that he's tackled at an academic basis as a case study. So the moment actually DG Grossi came to his position, it was the time, I mean, the COVID started in a couple of months, as I think. And the main problem at that time was the issue of having access to Iranian facilities, because the JCPOA was put in danger by the then the first presidency of Trump back in 2018. At that time, Iran was still in a negotiating mood, but just using the levels of enrichment as a piece for negotiations. And this IAEA access is, in fact, that. So I need to give some background on safeguards inspections. Safeguards inspections, in a nutshell, are technical solutions to the political problem of nuclear weapons proliferation. They are there to verify states' compliance with their treaty commitments. And they make several tasks to make this verification. But the original framework agreement was of 1972. And this was framed according to the circumstances of the time. With the Iraq War back in 1990 and 1991, after Iraq was defeated,
the Gulf
yeah,
War.
the Gulf War, the UN Special Commission, UNSCOM, inspectors were in Iraq, and they found out that Iraq under Saddam regime could start and pursue a nuclear weapons program, although Iraq was a party to the NPT and had signed a comprehensive safeguards agreement with the IAEA. So the question was how? How? Because there were some loopholes, there were some gaps that could be exploited by those states who wanted to have a nuclear weapon. And these were, in a way, like very simple examples. So the IAEA inspectors, there was bureaucracy. They could only make inspections in declared facilities. So the state would declare a facility and they could come and make inspections there. And so they could hide the material or equipment in some other sites where the inspectors couldn't have access to. Or they could just collect some samples from where it was declared. Or when they could come for inspections after the correspondence, maybe in a month after they said we're coming. So the international community said we have to strengthen this safeguards regime. And they introduced what is called the Model Additional Protocol to the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreements. And in short, we call them Additional Protocol. The Additional Protocol is enhanced safeguards, which are eliminating these problems and allowing inspectors to be more intrusive. And the principle of verification of compliance evolved to become ensuring that no undeclared facility or material exists. And legally, you need to even report to the IAEA when you are planning, when you're just planning to have a nuclear facility. Like it is not there, not constructed, but you plan it, but you still need to inform the IAEA about its nature and its design. So this is very intrusive. And it was revealed back in 2002 and 2003 that Iran did not report some of its facilities, and these were very critical for, they were uranium enrichment in Natanz and some other facility in Iraq. And why is uranium enrichment? I mean, it sounds like perhaps Chinese to those who have no idea about this. And let me talk about nuclear technology here. When, I'm sorry, I'm just going to take one sip.
Sure, Hocam.
Okay. The origin of the matter is called nuclear fission. Fission means the split of the atom. And when the atom splits, two things happen. The first thing is the atom absorbs a neutron, and this is uranium-235 isotope. It splits into two, and it releases a huge amount of energy. Now, I can give you the unit and the number of this energy, but it won't make sense to non-technical people. So it's just so that you know that it's huge. And at the end of this reaction, there are some, theoretically three, but at least two neutrons that are released. And these neutrons in this reaction go and find other uranium-235 and go on doing that. So a huge amount of energy is released.
Yes.
And so just keep this in mind. And the second thing is the uranium in its natural form is composed of mainly of uranium-238 isotope. And uranium-235 is very small, in a very small amount, less than 1%. So in order to, if you decide that I want to generate energy in a nuclear reactor, I want to produce electricity in a nuclear reactor by the help of a nuclear reactor, I should say, I need to have sustained and controlled chain reaction. But because this uranium-235 is very small amount, we need to increase this amount between 3 to 5%, or maybe 4 to 5%. And doing that, we have several methods, but doing that requires a substantial labor effort.
Yes.
It is not that easy. And if we want to increase this proportion to 20%, which is usually the research reactor level, you still use some effort, but it is comparably less. So in the first cluster, we have the 0.72 until 5, a curve that is increasing at an increasing rate, and then from 5 to 20, a curve that is increasing at a decreasing rate. Like if you remember in the COVID period, this kind of curve. And after 20, the 20 is determined by the IAEA as the threshold. In Turkish, we call it eşik.
Yes.
Why is it threshold? Because after 20, it is easier to reach the 90 and 90+% of enrichment, which is the bond level.
Yes.
It becomes very easy. So it is not linear like 45 degrees, but going like that.
Yes.
And that's why the international community became very uneasy with the technology that Iran had and the percentage of uranium enrichment. And that was why they were concerned, but it could still be kept under control with the JCPOA.
Yes.
Because with the JCPOA, Iran agreed for enhanced inspections to limit its enrichment to 5 and not even 20. So that was actually a very important concession that could be taken, so that if Iran thought that, yeah, I'm going to have a nuclear weapon, it would be stopped, or it would be detected at a very early time. And then it would be punished if necessary.
Okay, so maybe the cancellation of the deal wasn't a very good idea, what I understand.
Unfortunately.
I had the similar approach, but of course I don't have the technical knowledge you have. Just politically, I mean, Iran returning back to the international system was good from my perspective as a neighboring country, as for international economy and for security, for the very security of Israel also. But maybe at those days our position wasn't well received. Then, hocam, today where we are at now, I mean, Director General Grossi has made some statements. I'm sure our followers can Google it and find it. But if you summarize the position of Iran, because they seem like they are not ready to negotiate once again. It seems like they are on the verge of having bomb level. Prime Minister Netanyahu, at his UN speech several months ago, he showed this map, table chart, with Iran reaching that level, etc. And now maybe that threshold was passed. What is your latest knowledge on this? Because again, we learn from press mostly. We don't have the technical knowledge.
It's very interesting to see that what Prime Minister Netanyahu, it seems to be intending, is actually fueling what he doesn't like to see. So Iran would sit on the table and negotiate with the United States this weekend, and probably would reach something close to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Agreement. I mean, something. Although Trump called it the worst agreement, whatever, because it was made under Obama. So that was a political discourse. But it really served as a confidence-building measure. So probably still, this problem would be solved by technical means. And this is very key, so that everybody could agree on that one. And the reason why Israel was very vocal during 2018 to convinced Trump to withdraw from this agreement is actually the same reason now. For Israel, what is actually also a threat by Iran is if Iran is perceived, if Iran is taken by the international community as a normal country, like a country which is not a threat, but a country which can be made trade with. So as Iran is presented as a country which is not just threatening Israel, but also the region and maybe the interests of the other actors, it becomes easier for Israel to put Iran in the highlight and legitimize use of force against Iran in any way, like sanctions or other. And that's why Iran is also an actor by itself, and it has the drive for survival. And it used to actually keep its technology and its brain power as an option. We call it a nuclear option. If I decide I can make it, but I am not, don't force me to take this option and make it a reality. However, with the attacks for the past 3 days, including today, I think these made Iran more motivated for this. Because even today, I just read in the news that 14 of its nuclear scientists were also assassinated by Israel's attacks. And these are very, pointed attacks. So if the political aim of Israel is to just destroy Iran's capability to make a nuclear weapon, this is going to go this way. But if the operation is meant to also get rid of the Iranian regime, and then it goes at the very core and heart of its of Iran's survival. So when you're threatened with your survival, you will also react so that you can prevail in such a war.
Yes, I totally agree, Hocam. Maybe unfortunately the aim maybe from the Israeli perspective, US perspective, is to drive Iran into corner to make another deal, but it creates maybe a more patriotic mood among the people, at least for some people. And considering the fact that there's an ongoing tragedy in Gaza, maybe the support for Iran, in fact, in the Islamic world especially, is rising considerably, because Iran seems to be the only country that could dare to attack Israel. We have limited time, Professor Udum, only 2 minutes left. So last question, I'm sure we're going to make a Turkish version of this also in the coming months. What is Turkey's position in a theoretical, diplomatical level in terms of nuclear energy? We know that there's a nuclear power plant almost finished in Mersin Akkuyu, made by Russians, Turkish-Russian partnership, but it is for peaceful reasons, of course, for nuclear energy. And does Turkey have such projects to have nuclear weapons, etc., or Turkey is theoretically against it? What is Turkey's position?
Well, obviously, Turkey is compliant with its international legal commitments, and it is a member of NATO. So it is under the nuclear umbrella. And it would be very nonsensical to contemplate one for itself, because it actually, being the non-nuclear weapon state under the NPT, is serving to Turkey's interests much more than thinking about having one. And for the strategic balance in the region, it is also in its interest to have a non-nuclear Iran. And it has played a diplomatic role 15 years ago for the Tehran nuclear deal, which was also a very important one, although it went into ashes after one week or so.
Together
When
with Brazil, right? President Lula was there. Ahmet Davutoğlu
right,
was there.
right. Actually, I mean, if we had time, we could also talk more on that one. But
Next time.
Turkey has always promoted, always supported a Middle East free from all weapons of mass destruction, not
Thank
just nuclear weapons. And we have our reputation of being a compliant state, and this is our security asset.
Thank you, Professor. I think the last remark was really important. We hope that all countries in the region, including Iran and Israel, will come to Turkey's position. So non-nuclear Middle East is a better option for everyone, and I hope for the whole world in the coming decades. Hocam, thank you so much, Professor Udum. We wish you good luck in your further studies, and let's plan the Turkish version of it as well in the coming days.
It will be my pleasure, and it has been my pleasure. Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you.